Welcome to our monthly CTAM webinar roundtables. My name is Chuck Gadaris. I'm on the board and one of the webmaster for CTAM. So I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us. And for this evening's presentation, we're doing a webinar led by Alan Semonian of Stagecrafters, a CTAM favorite. Always lots of great information from Alan. He is the president of Stagecrafters, where he's been for the last 11 years. That's in Royal Oak, Michigan. He goes to pretty much any show in the Metro Detroit area. I kid you not, every show in all 15 to 20 theaters. So he is a huge fan of theater and very dedicated to his craft of not just theater, but finances, as he's been president of his own company, Ameritech, for the last 40 years. So he has a wealth of financial knowledge to give to us today. So I'm going to turn it over to him. And if you've got questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, or if Alan wants to take them live on the air, we'd probably do that as well.
Great. Well, first of all, Chuck, thank you for those very kind words. I hope I can live up to everything that you put on my resume there. So I had several years ago done a little talk on this at CTAM about different fundraising that came out of our COVID crisis. And everybody seemed very interested in that. And so CTAM asked me to come back for this. But I also have some post awarenesses since then that I've added to this presentation. And that's why the title of my talk tonight is your board on board for fundraising? That will become more evident as I go through these slides. If you have a question, I will be willing to stop through. I want to make sure I also leave time at the end for questions. So I will try to go at a good pace to get as much material to you, but also be cognizant of the fact that you might have some questions along the way. So this is my background. My background is really is a business background, not a theater background. Stagecrafters was literally 11 years ago, my first theater experience as far as being on stage. And then I immediately got involved, got on the board, was vice president for 8 years. And then I became president a couple of years ago, and my term is ending this May. So that's who I am. But everything I'm telling you is from the eyes of a CPA, a financial advisor, and an MBA. So everything is very business centric. And I will apologize up front that there's not a lot of the theater background until I got involved in theater 10 years ago. So I ask you this question: what is the primary role of board members in a nonprofit organization? Because many times I've been on a lot of nonprofit boards that were not theater, and it was really clear the role was of our board. And once I got involved in community theater, it became not clear what the role of the board is. And that will become more clear as I speak to that.
Were you sharing your screen yet, or because we lost it?
Oh, am I not sharing it? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I forgot. Okay, so let's do this.
There we go.
There we go. That's my background. So here we are. So I believe this is my prequel to of the series about fundraising, because it's realizations I made post-COVID. It really took the pandemic to get the board on board for fundraising to be the top priority. Why? Because for all intents and purposes, production stopped, which was our major source of revenue, right? Everything is focused on productions. And so even though as an organization, we should be bringing money and revenue in other ways, the primary source of revenue was always productions. Everyone was busy involved in productions. When the pandemic hit and we went to doing some things remotely, but very little productions, then suddenly we needed to bring money into the theater without having a production, or something close to a production without having a production. And we didn't have other things that were keeping us busy by getting ready for the next production. So it really put the focus on, we got to do fundraising. So the pandemic was, the silver lining of the pandemic is the board became focused on fundraising. Now, I believe humans have short-term memories and forget to learn from history. And in some ways, we've returned to old habits post-COVID, where we now focus on productions as the primary source of revenue, and non-production revenues become an afterthought. I don't know if other people feel this way, but it's been my experience that it doesn't become the top priority anymore when your top priority is putting many, many shows on during the year. I took this from the National Council of Nonprofits. You can actually Google, and by the way, this slide pack I'll make available to CTAM for them to give to anybody that wants that requested here. But I went to the National Council of Nonprofits to find out what they said the board roles and responsibilities are of a nonprofit. And once you know it, it was financial based stuff. It was governance type stuff. It didn't really talk about a specific product of the nonprofit. One of the things I thought was interesting is it talked about that one of the most important responsibilities is to hire and set the compensation of an executive director. Of course, this assumes you have an executive director that you can afford to pay, right? But notice also it says the role as stewards of the nonprofit does involve fundraising. Now, I think that there might be board members that don't recognize that their primary role in an organization as a nonprofit board member is fundraising. And that is why I took it from the National Council of Nonprofits about what board members' roles are. This is their basics about what the responsibilities are of a board member: duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of obedience. But at the end of the day, it's about making sure that as a fiduciary, you are making sure that financial decisions are being made so that the organization can go into the future, right? That's a lot of technical stuff. But what I want to talk about now is typically on a community theater board, the priorities are about play selection and social activities for the members and marketing maybe, but production oversight and some staff management, not necessarily fundraising and fund development. So when COVID hit, and this was the talk that I had given before about how it became a crisis, but it also became an opportunity for us. Here are the community theater challenges. These are challenges that I've identified that make it difficult to make fundraising the priority. Number one, in the Michigan area, and I learned this at AACT when one day I asked the question at one of the conference sessions about membership fees. And they said, what are you talking about? Because around the country, there are a lot of theaters. In fact, most of the community theaters are not membership based. In Detroit and at least in Michigan, most of them are membership-based organizations where we have to listen to and be directed by the opinions of the membership. That makes things a bit of a challenge to make a focus fundraising when people want to see shows, do shows, and be in shows kind of thing, right? The next big thing, which I have found, is a constant battle between, is this a club or is this a business? Because you make very different decisions about the organization on if your priority is a club versus a business. I remember hearing a nun say that was in charge of a hospital saying, our mission is healing people, but we cannot proceed with our mission if we don't have money coming in the door. So that's why you can still focus on being a social club, but you've got to be able to have some business that's making it run like a business. Conflicts of interest. Now, historically, conflicts of interest are things that people consider conflicts of interest are financial. But in community theater, everyone's a volunteer. The conflicts of interest are not financial. The conflicts of interest are, gee, if I pick this director, I might be able to be in their show, or I might be able to direct that show, or my friends could be in that show. What I noticed is conflicts of interest are rarely, I can make extra money by, picking this show. It's not about that. The conflicts of interest are opportunity-based in community theater. I think that we have challenged them more and more about recruiting pure volunteers for production crews. That's why some theaters are choosing to pay people to build sets and to make costumes. I think another challenge is the challenge we have in firing volunteers or perhaps moving them into other areas when their skill sets don't belong in where what they're doing. We have people that may not be welcoming, but do we want to put them at the front door greeting people? Probably not. The risk of board members micromanaging staff and micromanaging others, in the lack of trajectory thinking. What I mean by this is that every decision a board makes, you've got to look at what will that mean and how will that be interpreted. If, for example, and I'm just going to use an example, I'm not saying this actually happened. If, for example, the board decides to pick a season of all musicals, at some point, someone's going to raise the question on the outside, why didn't you pick a play? What message does that send? Or let's say the board says all the directors they pick happen to be board members. What message does that send? How does that get interpreted? So these are the things that you got. Or if we make this business decision today, how will it affect 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road? What's our ticket prices going to do to how people think in the future? That kind of thing. And then finally, what I see is burnout effect, creating a non-welcoming environment. This is a common experience that people have shared with me, that people in their theater get burned out because they're the core people that are doing everything. And that when someone comes in new from the outside and really is new and doesn't understand how to do stuff, we don't necessarily act in a friendly, kind, welcoming way because we're tired, and we're not saying things that would encourage them, but perhaps, push them away. So that's a vicious cycle with recruiting volunteers, because if you're burnt out and you can't be welcoming to new people, then they're not going to come back to do other, to volunteer. All right. So potential sources of fundraising. By the way, does anyone have any questions at this point on any of that precursor stuff that has to do with really kind of the board mentality and decision-making and conflicts of interest? All right. So these are potential sources of fundraising outside of actually ticket sales for productions. You could sell ads, you can have concessions, you can do cost cutting, you can have events, you can apply for grants, donations, partnerships with other organizations, planned giving, promotional items for sale, rentals of your building if you have a building to rent, corporate sponsorships, and then finally ticket sales. I'm going to go into each of these in a little more detail just to understand what we're talking about. So again, I talked about the pandemic actually being an opportunity, because now we had to find sources of money in places that we may not normally pick. Also, it gave people time to reassess. Right? If you're stuck at home, then we might want to take a look at, gee, well, how do I want to spend my time? A lot of organizations across the nonprofit world have noticed a drop in volunteerism. People were volunteering for 3, 4, 5 organizations. COVID made them stay home. And then when they got back, they're like, I don't really want to work that hard. All right. The first thing I do for the easiest fundraiser is cost cutting. Benjamin Franklin said a penny saved is a penny earned, and this is where it comes from. Every single line on your budget should be reviewed for opportunities for reduction in costs, as long as you don't affect the quality of the product. We know personally that when it comes to auto insurance, we should be reshopping that every few years. It's the same for your building insurance and other insurance costs for your theater. In addition, that works for your internet, your phone, your waste removal, all those major vendors. You don't really worry about the quality of a different internet provider as long as it's the same speed, and the same with the phone and the waste removal. It's just that you can always reassess those costs line by line. And are we subscribing to services and memberships that are not necessary? So those are some of the things that to look at first is, are there things we can cut costs on? Ticket sales, season tickets versus individual tickets. There's been a lot of discussion about theaters moving away from season tickets, people not buying season tickets. I have to tell you, I'm still a big fan of season tickets, in the sense that you can get people to maybe see a show that they wouldn't have seen otherwise, and you've got a guaranteed sale for a show that might not sell on its own. Some theaters have gone to flex passes, which is a creative way of getting the same number of tickets sold, but maybe people pick different shows. Ticket pricing. The biggest opportunity I saw post-COVID was that ticket prices could go up because all our expenses went up. It made sense. But you have to look at the fact that what else in the market can they have for those entertainment dollars? you're not competing just with other community theaters for tickets sales. You're competing with other things that people do for entertaining themselves. And when you look at it that way, you know, community theater is kind of a bargain, especially when people go to the movies and pay for popcorn and such like that, or go to a sporting event, or go to a professional theater, commercial theater. So don't undersell yourself. People in America value what they pay for. If a ticket price is too cheap, they think the show must not be that good. When they see two brands in the store and one's more expensive than the other, in their mind, most people think, oh, this must be a more valuable product. So don't underprice yourselves. Premium tickets. So when we sell out a show, there's an opportunity for people to sit in the lobby because our lobby is still open to the theater. And we have little tables there, and we give them a drink and a snack and sell a higher premium ticket. Our regular musical ticket is $35. I set up 10 seats in the back for premium at $75 a ticket when the show is sold out, with a snack and a drink. And guess what? They all sold. Because when people want to see a show and you don't have any more tickets left, they will pay the price. Yes, $75 for the same seat, except actually not as good a seat because it's further in the back. The other thing, and I'm going to talk about partnerships in a little bit, dinner and show packages are a big hit. If you partner with another restaurant and you sell them a package, people are looking for experiences different than what they usually do. And people have come for the first time to our theater because they bought a dinner and show package. Believe it or not, it happens. They just think that's cool that they're getting up one price for a ticket and for a ticket of a dinner and a show.
Hey, Alan, I got a question. So that dinner and a show, are you partnering with a local restaurant, or how are you doing the dinner and show?
I'm going to talk about that in a minute, in about 5 minutes, with partnerships. But I wanted to talk about this now with selling tickets and ticket prices. All right, obviously we all know about grants. We got a ton of money through all the programs that happened during COVID, but we continue to get money through Michigan Arts Council and other organizations. It's a lot of work, but if you start looking at some of the things you can do to improve scores, you can get a better chance of getting things that we've done. Have improved our scores tremendously on getting grants from MAC, and it works. So, but you need someone that knows how to write a grant if you don't have that skill set. And it may be worth paying someone to write your grants for you if you don't have someone that can do that. We were fortunate that we had a past executive director that knew how to write grants and volunteered to do that for us. And that's how we did some really good grants. Our second stage, our black box theater, the seating and the heating and cooling, half of that got paid with grants. Rentals.
Hang on a second, Alan.
What? Yeah, go ahead.
Before we get too far away from, there's a question about the premium seating. If you have a small seating space, if there isn't much of a difference, how do you position it?
Okay, if you have no more seats and you have no place to put more chairs, you can't really sell premium seating. But I will tell you this, there is an opportunity, and you will see this with the commercial theaters, of the front row being, or the front whatever, being priced at a higher price than the rest of the theater. Or if there's room anywhere to add chairs. But again, you got to look at what you got to work with, right? If the theater is only got a certain number of seats and there's no place beyond that you can put seats, then I would say, did you try to add performances? Because when you have a sellout, that's one of the things that is first. Add performances. But don't do it too soon, because you don't want to cannibalize the sales on the other performances. But if you have a hot show in any way, you should be planning that. I'm glad you brought this up. You should be planning to add performances. If it's Mamma Mia, Jersey Boys, anything that's going to get large appeal, you should already plan on adding shows and not announce it until close to the time that the show is sold out already. Because what good is 10 premium seats if you can sell a whole house again, right? In community theater, the mentality has been, oh, leave them wanting more. That's what I heard when I said, let's add performances. No, you want to leave our people wanting more. And I said, no, I'm leaving us taking their money. They are wanting to give us money. Add another performance, people. And so, you know, that's what we did. When we did Mamma Mia, I'd already planned a 5th weekend to sell before it was up for sale. The first 3 weekends sold out completely. That extra weekend sold out at 85%. And then people said, well, you didn't sell out. I said, yeah, but we sold 85% of 3 more shows. That's really worth it. That's a lot of money. It was the most successful ticket sales ever in the history of the organization because we added 3 more performances at 85%. So yeah, you got to work with what you got. Again, I would prefer adding performances to adding premium tickets. But if you can't add any more performances, then there's some way you can upsell people. Does it mean you add dinner to a certain row of seats, or you offer that as an upgrade? People love upgrading. It's just a natural thing. It's going to Comfort Plus or going to first class. And that way you're not taking away the opportunity for people that can't afford it to still see the show. All right, so that's the grant stuff. Rentals, only, of course, if you've got a building that you can rent out. And by the way, you've got time during the day for corporate America to use it for a training room or just an experience of being somewhere other than a normal training facility. The biggest issue, the biggest impediment to this is that productions don't like their show being interrupted. So you try to do it between show productions. We have a partnership with PBS. They do live shows at our theater, and we actually do a barter so that we get advertising on PBS. But the rental itself is the use of the space for a night that we're dark, a Wednesday night. I want to tell you a little creative program that happened right when COVID hit. We had the next season without any shows. We have very loyal season ticket holders. So I met with a major donor, talked to him about the idea. He loved it. And what we did is we did a phone-a-thon. We called every season ticket holder on our list and said, we are closed because of COVID. We don't know how long we're going to be closed, but we will run out of money and have to shut down permanently in 5 months. What we're asking you to do is to buy your season ticket without seeing any shows. And we have a major donor that will match whatever you do dollar for dollar. In 1 week of phone-a-thoning, we raised $250,000 from our season ticket holders. It was the most profitable season in the entire history of the organization because we had absolutely no production costs. Now, that's an extreme situation because we don't have a pandemic that's closing us down.
Yeah.
What? Did I hear something? No, okay. But it should give you an idea of how loyal season ticket holders are and what opportunities you've got there. We did try to move to people that bought lots of individual tickets to see, and we weren't getting anything out of it. So there is a different mentality from a season ticket holder than a person that buys a whole bunch of individual tickets. The other thing we created is the GEM program, which is give every month. And it got people to 5, 10, 15, whatever, every single month. And we had levels. We had, we named them after gemstones. So, we had amethyst and diamond and all that stuff. The other thing that worked really well is a Facebook donation campaign. And we've done it since then for birthdays. Hey, for my birthday, the Facebook makes it really easy for you to do a campaign for your nonprofit and to raise money. And you can give a specific cause. And you can also say it's for my birthday. And Facebook takes the 2% merchant fee off of it. But who cares? You're paying a merchant fee if they donate to you directly too. So it's a really success. I mean, thousands of dollars we've raised just through Facebook that way. Any questions? I don't want to go too fast, but I want to cover all the material. All right. Major donors. I always say a donor loves to see that their money is worth more than $1 when they give $1. So those matching opportunities are huge. That's what I took advantage of with the Sustainer program. If there's something you want to fund in the theater, whether it be, and people like individual donors like our infrastructure, something that they can say, that chair, that table, whatever, that kitchen. I would suggest talking to a major donor about doing a matching opportunity. That way you can raise 2 for 1. The donor likes it, but also individual donors like the idea that when they give $5, it's really worth 10 today. Lots of organizations do that. Forgotten Harvest does it. There's the matching campaigns. Naming opportunities. If you've got, PBS taught me that in their building that they had literally everything was sold that was in the building for a naming opportunity. Now, the toilet didn't have the plaque next to the toilet, but people knew they paid for a toilet, that kind of thing. All right. This is my favorite. This is, if you get nothing else out of this seminar tonight, community partnership with organizations. Why partnerships? Because partnerships increase the awareness of your organization at absolutely no financial cost whatsoever. You will see up here in the upper right, this is Freedom House Detroit. Their mission is they help people get citizenship, and through a whole program that they've got. And in that program, they literally teach people English, give them job interviewing skills, teach them social norms about how to interact with people in specific situations. When we did Ragtime, I selected Freedom House as the community partner. It was a wonderful match. We had representatives from Freedom House at every show. At the end of each production, we had cast members speak about what Freedom House is, and that cast members would collect money on their behalf. When I got the opportunity to, we also collected items, like groceries and toilet paper and all that. When we got to deliver the gift to Freedom House, we had raised close to $14,000, and we had 3 SUVs full of toilet paper and canned goods, etc. Presented the check. The executive director started crying. That made us all cry. It was a wonderful experience. They, of course, were telling their donors about Stagecrafters. We were telling our donors about Freedom House. We were not competing for the same dollars. I had people saying, "Why are you raising money for another organization?" And I said, because it's the right thing to do. They're not, and it will come back tenfold. And it did, because guess what happened? We mentioned this in our grant application, and they gave us a high score because we were doing this. So it helped us get our grants because we were giving away money or raising money for another organization. And here's other things. We had Gilda's Club when we did Noises Off, because of their logo has the big red door with Gilda in front of it. And of course, there's lots of doors in Noises Off. And then here the kids did a program with blanket wraps for the homeless, and where they raise money with their blankets that you can wrap yourself in, so that it's a dual purpose. So anyway, not only did it create wonderful competition inside a cast to raise money with different teams, but it created a really great sense of goodwill. And it also raised a lot of money for other organizations and awareness mutually for our organization and theirs. So I highly recommend it. If it has a connection to the show, even better. It was a natural here, that something that had to do with helping people in this way was for Freedom House. So there you go. Affinity partners. Now this gets to the restaurant thing. So when we did, what I introduced is the idea that we would have restaurant partners similar to the community partners, but these would be for-profit businesses. When we did Cinderella, we went over to the Jolly Pumpkin, because Cinderella, pumpkin, anyway. Not every restaurant's going to work that way, but if there's a theme that we can connect, if it's Little Mermaid, we'd probably go to Lily's Seafood, that kind of thing. But what we were doing is we were selling packages. We would sell the ticket for the restaurant and us as a combined ticket, which would be a meal plus the ticket for the show. And they'd get basically a discount because we were selling a voucher that was worth $35 for only $30. So they get a bit of like a, 10% or whatever, 8%. And also it created an experience. People were looking for the experience. And so logistically, it's a little extra work. You got to work with the restaurant. You got to identify how you're going to reimburse them. By the way, if someone buys one of these and never uses it, then you end up getting the profit of it, right? Because you're not reimbursing the restaurant, but they paid for it. And that happens too. It doesn't happen a lot, but there's some extra profit there. Events. So they're a lot of work. It's not necessarily my favorite idea of raising money because they're a lot of work. But we had the opportunity because this guy here is Jeffrey Seller in the bottom there. He is the producer of Hamilton, and he grew up in our youth theater. So we had a 60th anniversary gala, invited him as our award-winning host, and he donated generously 2 tickets for our live auction to Hamilton. They sold at a very high price. He donated 2 more tickets to Hamilton. They sold at a very high price. So if you've got a connection like that, that's great. We also have over here on the top right, Tom Butwin. He performed as our Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar, but he also is a performer outside of that. He actually has a following. We had a concert raised for the theater about $10,000. He donated his services. He donated all the setup, and we ended up raising $10,000 in one night just for ticket sales from a concert. So that was not a lot of work because he really played producer on his own show. But yeah, events can work, but you've got to have a pull, and the pull might not be just your same performers doing a concert. You've got to have some level of something special more than that. But it works too. We did after the fundraising gala weekend on that Sunday, we did a performance at just $20 a ticket where we had put together kind of a cabaret of performers for different shows, and that sold pretty well.
Okay, before you get into the next slide, we did a question.
Yep.
How did you launch your GEM program? Farmington players just started the program, and so far they only have a few members who have signed up and no patrons.
Got it. So when we originally created it, obviously it was during COVID, so there was some more momentum in that regard. And I thought that each level should have a perk, whether it be an actual physical thing or just like a free parking pass at this level, because there's parking charges at our theater, or next to the theater, or free exchange of season tickets, which now everyone has anyway because of COVID. We don't want people coming when they're sick. But there was little perks like that. But I was looking at things that they could get. Like what I might suggest is maybe at the higher levels, you get something like PBS. Remember, think of PBS. When I watch PBS for an hour and see how they raise money, and there are premium gifts available, right? It might be a teddy bear with your theater logo on it that you give to those people that give at least $50 a month, or it might be a notebook with your logo on. You might have some items that you can give to people. It could be stuff from before that you just have in stock, or you might decide to order something that you can give to people as a special premium gift. Most people want to donate for the sake of donating, but it's not a bad thing to give them some intangibles as well, like give them preferred seating or give them last minute cancellation or whatever. You think about some creative ways that there are perks at these different levels. The subscriber way of doing it is ideal because you just conveniently bill them every month automatically until they tell you no, which is a lot harder to tell someone to stop billing you than it is to start, right? So you want to do the credit card monthly billing automatically, and also it doesn't hurt so much because it's only $10 a month instead of $120 all at once. Sponsorships. Look to organizations that could, and anybody that's in your organization that has a company, you should go to them to see if they'll be willing to sponsor. But also, is there someone on your board that's doing outreach to talk about the advantages, the outreach, the fact that they get their name on your website, in the playbill, and you're announced before the show starts. There's, you know, you make that, you spread the love on your sponsors and show and give them tickets, free tickets to the shows, whatever. It will work. We look, obviously everyone does concessions, right? I went one step further and I said, okay, what's the most productive, profitable concessions? The water at 10 cents when people are giving $1 is the most profitable thing you can sell, right? I noticed, and here's of course, these prices are probably still pre-COVID, but or during COVID, but you might want to look at what you know, if you want to get real fun with this, what raises the most money. But people tend to donate more than the cost regardless, right? So people have tried to sell, and it's just easier to just do it this way, and then you don't have to charge sales tax, and you know, there's that. We did sell promotional items from time to time. The problem is if it's specific to a show, you will then have leftovers later that you can't get rid of. So you might want to make it specific to the theater or the season so that you can keep selling it. The biggest hits for promotional items are for the kids show. Magic wands during some princess show is great. You know, anything Disney that's, you know, any Disney show you do, something, you can't put the Disney logo on it, but you could sell something, you know, with your theater logo on it. And we had lines out the lobby when we were selling the wands for, what show was that? Anyway, it was a kid show, kid-friendly show. I'll have to think about it. But yeah, you can make money, but you got to have something that people really want. Otherwise, stick with the promotional items that, you know, baseball caps and sweatshirts, that the theater brand kind of stuff.
All right, before you start this one, we have one more question from a couple slides back. How much do you charge for your sponsorships?
Okay, so good question. Okay, if it's a main stage show, we tend to do $5,000 per show. I think at least that's what it was, and 10 or 15 for a season. If it's second stage, it's priced probably at like $2,500 per show. You know, you have to know your local market, but people tend to sell this too cheap because they usually give away, you know, 20 tickets or 10 tickets for the show. Think about what you're giving away there. Not every sponsor uses all the tickets. I know that Village Players, the season is sold for $7,500 in Birmingham. So it really depends on the local market, but you know, you got to also show them what impact, how many people will see this. Use your website to thank your sponsor. Use your playbill to thank your sponsor. Use your pre-show announcement to thank your sponsor, etc.
Okay, and then we have one other question about the concessions now. You're kind of endorsing having donations for concessions and not charging for individual items, right?
Correct. Because technically, if you sell it, you should be charging sales tax. A donation, people don't have to do that. And also, people tend to throw whatever bill they've got in their wallet. Yes, they can take change, but you know, when you're getting $1 for something that costs you 10 or 20 cents, you know, why not, right? I will tell you one thing, by the way, we have used, and I recommend in this department, use your temporary liquor license when you can. You get 12 as a nonprofit per calendar year. I strongly recommend that you use them for your shows that people will tend to drink more first. You know what shows those are. Forget doing them. Forget using the liquor license for matinees. You won't be worth it. You're using one of your 12 for that. But use them strategically. People will pay money for alcohol, particularly if the show is one that would encourage that, right? You know what shows those are. And I would say that, you know, we bought actually a liquor license. We're going through some stuff that we have to get done to be ready to use it, but it was such a profitable experience using the temporary licenses that we decided to purchase a full-on liquor license. Oh, and by the way, people will pay a lot more for a drink when they're a captured audience. All you have to do is go to any sporting event or any entertainment venue that's not a community theater, and you will see people paying $14 for drinks that you would never think you'd pay more than $8 for. You know?
Fully second all of this. And I've also seen, at least in the Village Players, they put a QR code out to scan to do a donation if you don't have money on you. And I've seen people donate $1, $3, $5, like 2 days later. Oh yeah, I got food at the thing. I'll donate some food, some money for food.
Yeah, I strongly, this is the one that everyone does promote. I mean, most people do concessions. The liquor thing, people have just started to explore, and it really does work. Because otherwise, people during intermission are going next door to the bar. You know. Plan giving. Okay, so this is going to have the largest payoff by far, but it's also the longest cycle to get it done. Everybody that has an emotional connection to your theater at some point will mature their life contract, i.e. pass away. And is your organization near and dear to their heart? Because particularly people that don't have a lot of family members to leave money to, or don't think they deserve it, or don't want to, they need to have an entity that they want to give money to. Why wouldn't you set yourself up to be that organization? You should be nurturing major donors throughout the entire cycle. There are people that do just specific planned giving. You know, this is an area that most community theaters aren't real good at, but need help doing, because their payoff is unknown, right? You can't say, okay, well, we're going to collect. They're not going to tell you how much they left you in your will, or then maybe they might, but typically they're leaving a percentage of their assets to you. Well, you don't know what they're going to be worth, because you don't know if they're going to be what they're going to spend during their lifetime. Advertising, okay, you know, that's kind of been the thing that we've done in our playbills forever. I think the idea is to cover the costs of printing the playbill. I don't really see the printing of the playbill, the advertising the playbill paying for more than that, and that's fine. It's just, you know, I use it more as one of the things I see in a lot of community theaters that I really like is listing your donors in the playbill. Some people like to see their name in print, and that makes them want to donate more. Take advantage of that. It also shows people in good company. Oh, I want to be on that list. So, you know, if you have room in your playbill, I would thank and promote your donors. And then advertise around it just so that the playbill looks thick enough to be legit, you know? All right. So if you have any questions after this, workshop, then all you have to do is take any of those emails or numbers or addresses, and you can contact me with questions. If you're starting one of those programs and you need any questions about that, I'm more than willing to share anything I know about that stuff. So that's all that. Now, I'm sure people have some questions. I went deliberately on the fast side so that we have, 10 to 15 minutes at the end here to answer questions or get deep into something that I brought about that you might want to talk about. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast though. Okay.
No, great pace. People are on mute, so if you want to come off mute and ask a question, feel free. A lot of great information to digest. Don't all speak at once.
Has anybody found anything that they've done for fundraising that I haven't mentioned that seems to be working well?
I feel like pretty much everything you've covered is stuff that the groups I've worked with have fall under one of those categories.
Let's see.
I'm definitely a big fan of your partnerships concepts.
I
think that one's going to pay off the most for you, because the way you mentioned the grants part. So like once you start getting to the point where you can write the grants, you've already got these partnerships established.
Right.
That's going to raise your score, like you said.
Yeah, I have to say that the things, so many good things come out of doing partnerships. You cannot overestimate how well that works for getting connections with other organizations. Because guess what? At some point, one of those organizations might need some talent to for their organization. They might want somebody to show up as an entertainer, or they might want to bring their group for a show or something. So talk about group ticket sales. There's a great opportunity right through that, right?
Absolutely. I know some groups like to do like the preview show, or like when like the last dress is like kind of
So,
that.
by
that
the way, I'm glad you
preview
brought that up. So that final dress is a great thing to give to your corporate sponsor, or your or anything that, you know, as a, hey, a sneak preview performance for your donation, that kind of thing.
And I also kind of wanted to double back to that one you had about planning a fifth performance, but like another performance weekend, but not advertising that till you get like a week or two out. I didn't realize like that's very clever and smart that you've already planned it. Like, did you find it challenging to get like all the cast, all the crew, all the orchestra to commit to that?
So here's the deal. And then I've got a question from Mary Lou and then from Heather. I see your hand. The nice thing about doing that final dress as an event for your sponsor, they got to show up for the final dress anyway. That's your last chance to do a real performance before we open. So the orchestra's there anyway. The cast and crew is there anyway. You're not adding a performance. You're doing your final dress, and you announce at the beginning of the show, hey, if something goes wrong, we might have to stop the show. We just want, because this is a sneak peek preview. You build it up as like, you're on the inside now. And you know what? We haven't stopped, but we could. We just,
Yeah.
Mary Lou.
Don't forget that you would have to pay royalties on that sneak performance.
Right. You're right. So you got now one of the things we've done is we've asked the sponsor to pay for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, wait a minute. And here's the reason why. If you think about how many people they're going to bring to the event, right? It's a cheap ticket price for them. And
Sure.
and they get to do whatever they want that night. They, the sponsor usually brings a meal for their clients or whatever. So they get the lobby to serve dinner. Tell me where they could rent a facility that entertains and hosts, right? For just the cost of paying the royalty.
That's a great corporate event.
It's a great corporate event.
And then you got all these people who are going to speak about the show and how great it was.
I'm going to tell you, I do it for my clients, and everyone keeps talking about that show. That was thank you for inviting me. I mean, I can't pick a better goodwill gesture than giving away the house to my clients for a sneak preview night. I don't mind paying, $2,000 for a royalty fee, or $1,000, whatever it was, it's not that much when you divide it by, 150 people, right?
Right.
You're getting them in for $8 a head. Heather, I think, could you go off mute? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Your question?
You're on mute,
You're on mute.
Heather.
There we go.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi there.
Recently with our theater company, we partnered with a shipping company to help ship a set that we had rented from Grand Rapids up to Escanaba. And we used their partnership, and they're now a seasoned sponsor because they covered the cost of shipping that set. So we've established a really great relationship with a transport company now in our area, that if we ever need to do something along those lines, we have a foot in the door, and now a seasoned sponsor as well.
Right. Oh, I know. That's what I mean about the partnership stuff. It's the gift that keeps giving, because no, really. And here's the thing: you didn't spend a dime for it. It's a relationship. This is the thing that I got to tell you. Building relationships with other organizations is a great way to connect and be able to, because maybe they can't help you, but maybe they know someone that can, because in their industry, they do this other thing all the time, right? So you don't know where that's going to lead. So I encourage, the nonprofit community partners are great for, sharing, the donor base, but the for-profit community partners are great for, that reciprocity. The thing is, you're not going to partner with something that competes directly with you, right? I'm not going to support another theater. I'm not going to fundraise for another theater per se. I'm going to fundraise for a food bank. I'm going to fundraise for a a battered shelter, that kind of thing. I'm not going to do it necessarily. Now, I'm more than willing to help other theaters in anything we can do as far as, oh, do you need a costume for this, whatever. But when it comes to fundraising, actively raising funds, we raise money for other nonprofits that are not theaters.
We had a couple more questions come in. How do you handle the extra royalties when you extend a successful show? Do you ask the cast and crew to commit to another weekend at auditions if you think it'll sell out?
Yes. If it's if a show is going to sell out, at the auditions, you tell them right there and then, there's a chance that we'll be adding a 5th weekend. We need to know your availability on that as well, because it's really hard when you've sold out a show surprisingly, unexpectedly, and then you ask the cast, are you available? And you can't force them. If they're not available, you can't do it, right? So get them up front that there's a chance. We don't know when. We will tell you as soon as we know we're going to do it. Now, I got to tell you, I knew Mamma Mia was going to be a 5th weekend right from the get-go. But, there's other shows you don't know. You don't know it's going to sell out. When we reopened our second stage, both the first show and the second show sold out because we only had 7 performances. The second show, we added 3 more. They sold out. If I had complete control, I would have added another weekend. But I don't have complete control. I'm only the president. So we couldn't add any more shows. But the point is, your easiest way to raise production revenue is to add a performance, because the dollars you pay in royalty costs and orchestra the break even's like 30 tickets, 40 tickets. Okay. If you have a house of 300, 400, you don't have to sell more than 10% of the house. But don't announce the extra shows too early, because you will cannibalize the sales of your other shows. People want you to pull the trigger. Your own board will want you to pull the trigger. Don't do it. Allow yourself to be sold out or almost sold out before you add the other performances.
Excellent. And then the one other question, any advice on making the board more focused on finances over artistic choices? Currently, most of ours mainly focused on the productions and not the more foundational items.
Well, it's interesting. This is my Achilles heel, because I come from I don't care what shows you pick personally, because I don't care if I'm in any of them. That's not the attitude of most board members. Okay. I look at it as, my job is not to find a show that I can be in. My job is to find a show that people want to see and have a season that's sellable as a season. And maybe we put something in there that isn't necessarily what someone wants to see, but they're open to it because we've wrapped it in a nice package around with strong anchors. I will tell you, it is hard to convince people in the artistic world that your prime objective is to fill the seats, because there's the artistic thing about, we want to make sure that, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Just understand that that's part of the decision. You may want those shows that don't sell to have less performances. We used to do 4 weekends for all musicals regardless, 3 weekends for all straight shows regardless. We've modified it. Oh, that show is not going to be a 4-weekend musical. Sorry, we're not going to sell 4 weekends. That should be 3 weekends. Don't do the same. Every show is not created equal. So every musical doesn't belong to getting the same number of performances, and every straight show doesn't belong. And by the way, you can add performances easier than you can cut them, right? We had done a show during October a couple of years back, Frankenstein. Obviously, people were buying tickets because it was Halloween. They didn't even know what the show was going to be about, other than it's Frankenstein, it's Halloween. It sold out. They had the idea of adding a midnight show like Rocky Horror. We sold 7 tickets for that midnight show. I canceled that midnight show and I added a Sunday evening at 7 p.m. and sold it out. So just like an airplane, don't do red-eye flights that people don't want, which is what a midnight show is. There's only one show that deserves a midnight show, and it's probably Rocky Horror, right? I mean, no, yeah. And I don't know, even at my age, I don't think I want to stay up till midnight to see anything, but that's a whole nother. But the point is, make sure you understand how an airplane sells tickets is the same way we sell tickets. If it's a Sunday matinee, don't discount it. Those are your top sellers. When I came to the theater, Sunday matinees were discounted because it's a matinee. It was the first one that sold out, regardless of the price. In fact, if you interview patrons, they'll pay a premium to come on a Sunday matinee. They don't want to drive at night. So think about the seats that sell and don't discount those. That's a whole nother discussion. But so to that point, back to what were we saying? What was the original question?
Board focused on finances over
Yes,
artistic choices.
yeah. Everything is, I look at everything from through a financial lens, because that's my training. But I to try to explain to people why, when their focus is, you know, we want to have the artistic, we want to have a show that people want to be in, or that people want to direct. And I get all that, but then, okay, modify your schedule. Don't give it 4 weekends, right? Because if you give it 4 weekends, now you've used up a weekend that I could rent the theater out to some outsider without doing a production, that kind of thing, right? And keep in mind, any show that could sell out, keep extra performances available. I cannot, and by the way, you know, people will come on a Sunday evening for an extra performance. People will come on a Saturday matinee for an extra performance. If it's a kid-friendly show, focus on matinees as extra performances. If it's an adult show, focus on a Sunday evening as the extra performance, because most people don't do shows on Sunday evenings in community theater. They do Sunday matinees. You could add it, make it a double. If it's a musical and too intense for the leads to do a double, then you've got to add a weekend.
Or you can add a Thursday or a couple Thursdays.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That way you're not having to add it, like ask
Right.
people later to commit to extra time.
Right.
Well, I believe we're at an hour. We've had a lot of great questions. Someone
Mary
else?
Lou, can I take Mary Lou's one last question real quick?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add to that previous discussion is in your board manual, and I hope everybody has a board manual. That's where you can take the time to explain why you need financial thinking, not creative thinking on the board. And you can go further into the need for fundraising from the board.
Yeah. Make sure when you're recruiting people for your board that you've got people that come from the financial world in some way, because and more than just one person or two people, because otherwise it's skewed to everything's an artistic decision.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being able to share some of the experience. And by the way, I have to say, I learned a lot of this on the job because of desperation that we had to raise money. It wasn't like I had training in theater fundraising. It just, we were desperate. And so it worked. And so that's why I wanted to share it with everyone.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing that with us. So we appreciate everyone giving up their Tuesday evening like this. We're probably going to do another 3 or 4 weeks. That's going to focus on your volunteers, recruiting, retaining, and recognizing your volunteers, and hopefully some more in the summer about possibly board management and things like that. So again, thank you for the time, Alan, tonight, and for all of you attending. And hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you, man.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.